Notice is hereby given that the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Islip will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, February 7, 2023, at Town Hall West on the following applications at the times listed or soon thereafter as they may be reached. At such time, all interested parties will be given an opportunity to be heard. Application number 84-23, Giovanna and Giacomo Guarnera. Permission to leave pool deck having side yard of 9 feet instead of required 10 feet, and to leave patio having side yard of 1 foot instead of required 4 feet. Residence A District, north side of Boulevard Avenue, 490 feet west of Harvest Lane, West Islip.
Hi, guys. Dana Bush, 41 Whittier Avenue, Medford, New York.
So, you have a presentation or you?
Oh, I didn't know if you wanted to talk first or I would talk first. Just to add to the my application, I just wanted to say for the deck where it's only 1 foot we're going for. To add to the privacy, there are arborvitaes all along the backyard, so it's not like they're overlooking into the neighbor's yard. And for the concrete on the side, it's used for just extra space for their kids to play on the off season, and then for right now, it's where they store their camper.
Is anyone else here who would like to be heard on this application? Any questions from the board?
I don't.
Take the motion, unless those.
Second.
Motion to approve the application. All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Chris, you'll take bills?
Okay. That's right.
Yes, yes. Application number 85-23, Vilma Sanchez and Ifran Ayala. Permission to leave roofed over deck having front yard on a through lot of 20 feet instead of required 40 feet, and shed having front yard of 20.3 feet instead of required 35 feet, and having 19 feet behind the front line of the dwelling instead of the required 20. Residence AA District, north side of Lexington Avenue, at west side of intersection with Commercial Boulevard, Brentwood.
Yes, my name is Efrain Ayala.
Please speak up.
Yes, my name is Efrain Ayala. I'm living 51 Lexington Avenue in Brentwood.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this application? Any questions from the board on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Application number 86-23, Samantha Stevens and Ryan Del Rossi. Permission to leave pool patio having rear yard of 5 feet instead of required 6 feet. Residence A District, south side of Fortside Drive, 322.55 feet east of Coates Avenue, Holbrook.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Roxanne Trella, Dynamic Expediting Services, with offices at 1040 Terry Road, Ronkonkoma, New York. We are here today for permission to leave a pool patio having a rear yard of 5 feet instead of 6 feet. It's a minimal relief being requested, and it was just a simple contractor error.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this application? Any questions on it?
I'd make the motion.
All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Application number 87-23, Senin Kando. Permission to leave driveway having side yard of 2 feet instead of required 4 feet, shed having rear yard of 1.5 feet instead of required 2 feet, and concrete pad having side yard of 1 foot and on rear property line not having required setback of 4 feet each. Residence B District, south side of Winchester Place, 120 feet east of Savoy Avenue, Bayshore.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Roxanne Trella, Dynamic Expediting Services, with offices at 1040 Terry Road, Ronkonkoma, New York. We're here for a rear yard variance for a shed. It's a small shed, 10 by 12, has 1.5 instead of 2. The concrete pad that's also before us it's underneath that shed, so it has a side yard of 1 foot, and it's on the rear property line. And then we are also here for the driveway, which is a side yard of 2 feet instead of 4 feet.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this application? Any questions?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
One more. Application number 874-22, adjourned from November 29, 2022. Tiffany Haas and David Haas. Permission to erect 1 and 2-story additions, leaving side yard of 5.8 feet instead of required 18 feet. Total side yards of 23.8 feet instead of required 36 feet. To leave 2 sheds having side yards of 1 foot and 1.2 feet instead of required 2 feet each. And driveways having side yards of 2.5 feet and 2.8 feet instead of required 4 feet each. Residence AA District, south side of Cedarhurst Street, 300 feet west of Belmore Avenue, Islip Terrace.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Roxanne Trella, Dynamic Expediting Services with offices at 1040 Terry Road, Ronkonkoma, New York. This application was previously heard on November 29th. At that time, the 2 sheds and the driveways were discussed as being minimal. The reason that the hearing was adjourned was mostly for the side yard setback of 5.8 instead of the required 18 feet. So at that time, it was discussed that there was a couple of houses in the neighborhood that were maybe built too close to the property line, but I didn't have any specific precedent with me. I was only able to come up with at that time a CO and a survey for 2 properties nearby. I did speak with the town over several properties, and we were able to locate a couple of cases in the neighborhood. The first being at 85 Cedarhurst, and this was under ZBA number 387-99, and the board at that time granted a side yard setback of 8.9 feet instead of 18. There was also a grant for 870 Green Lawn under ZBA number 371-20. And this granted a 2nd-story addition with 4 feet instead of the required 18 feet. And it also actually gave them a variance for a rear yard of 14.5 instead of 25. We then have 2 properties. These houses must have been built prior to a code because there's no ZBA grant, but they do have a CO and survey. One of them is 185 Cedarhurst, and it holds a 5.8 side yard setback. I do have a copy of the CO and the survey indicating that. And then we have 137 Amityville Street, and that maintains a 9-foot side yard setback. In addition to those cases that show the very minimal setbacks, similar to the application that we have before you, there were 2 other grants, one in 2009 under ZBA 725-08 that granted 11.6 feet in the side yard, and that is at 151 Cedarhurst, and another one granted in 2001 under ZBA 158-01, which granted a 14.5 side yard setback, and that address was 116 Cedarhurst. I did bring a copy of the COs, the surveys, and those ZBA decisions. If you would like me to pass them up, I can.
Yeah.
Sure. No, we actually have one that was 4 feet, and that was for a 2nd-story addition at 4 feet instead of 18, and the 1-story portion of that house is actually at 3.7 feet.
But the substandard side yard already existed, unlike this application where you're creating the substandard side yard.
On that one. But then on the other 2 that didn't have ZBA decisions, there was one on 185 Cedarhurst that does maintain a 5.8 side yard, which is the exact number that they're looking for.
And how do you look at the precedents that you offer? One of which has a first floor setback of 328. Okay, and then so there's another one where everything is the whole thing is about 50, right?
Yes.
Colin.
No, also at 5.8.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, 185 Cedarhurst.
No need to exacerbate the existing issue. These aren't exactly small lots either.
I did speak to the clients about possibly revising what they were asking for. I think the biggest issue for them is that they're trying to expand their garage, which is on that deficient side yard over there. So in order to be able to fit a vehicle, the smallest addition that would allow that would be, the addition right now that's proposed is 16 feet wide. And I believe if we lowered it down to give a side yard of 9 feet, that would be the smallest in order for them to be able to fit their vehicle inside that garage.
This is the 3/4 of the vehicle. I think that But
So,
that's just my opinion. The board, I may hold on their own.
yes, I understand it's a substantial relief that's being requested. But
It's not like we're down in Babylon Beach State on 9,000 square feet.
correct, yes. The one that was existing was for a second story. I could check the surveys to see if there was any other. There was a second story deck that was granted. That was at 191 Oceanside. No, just the one that the lot was already existing that way was 3.7 on the first floor, 4 on the second. Survey. That was a 68 by 200. Sorry, I'm 300 on one side. So it's a substantial lot. They also had room to go.
Is anyone else who'd like to speak on this application? Please come up one at a time. If you would like to testify, please come up and speak. Could please state your name and address for this.
My name is Daniel Palladino. I live at 174 Cedarhurst Street. Palladino. I don't want nothing going on. I got water issues and debris washing in from his yard, flooding my backyard and everything else. He put a pool in his yard almost 2 years ago, built-in pool. He raised the grade 2 feet over there by the pool, and I had to talk with him a year and a half. He was going to fix it because the water and debris was washing underneath his fence, my fence, flooding my yard. 6 months ago, he put a driveway alongside my property, and I got more debris, more stones, water, and my grass is dying, whatever's coming underneath the fence. I don't want nothing.
Thomas Hoffman, 165 Cedarhurst Street. I live directly across the street from the house in question. Hoffmann. If I misunderstood the woman speaking before about an existing garage, there is no garage at that house at all, number one. Number two, the homeowners run a construction business, and there's a lot of activity in and out of that house with vans and people going there to pick up their work. They leave their cars parked in the street. My concern is whatever they're trying to build, they're going to be running the whole firm out of this home. So, and I know it's not zoned for commercial, it's zoned for residential. I've been living there since 1985. We've never had an issue like this before. Everybody's been very good. So I'm just concerned that it's going to turn into, I tell my wife, if I want to live on Hempstead Turnpike, I would have bought a house on Hempstead Turnpike. All right, thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak?
Not only is the water coming under, but okay, Daniel Palladino, 174 Cedarhurst Street. Not only is the water coming underneath the fence and everything, he sealed up all the drainage of his backyard where he did the pool. There's leaders dumping on that side of the house, and all that roof water comes right over on my property too. It's only a short distance, only like 12 feet, 14 feet from the house to the fence. 174 Cedarhurst.
Thomas, sir.
That's where the driveway, the road to the street. When I built my house there, I had to put a catch basin in, I had to put a person in, I had to pay. And just after any program.
Sorry to beat a dead horse. I'm Kathleen Hoffman, 165 Cedarhurst Street, Hoffmann. The only thing I would like to bring to your attention are the homes that they're talking about that are very close to the property line on Cedarhurst Street were all sisters that moved in and bought that property together. Then they divided that property up, and that's why those buildings are as close to the property lines as they are. They have been there since my husband and I have lived there. We're there 40 years. So those homes have been there 40 years. The sisters all in a row, 3 homes in a row. That's why they're building. Their properties are close to the property line. It's not a unique, it is a unique situation because it was family that bought it. I agree with my husband. We are concerned, a business, activity going in and out of the house. My major concern, whatever you want to do to your house, that's your business, as long as it's done properly and efficiently. But I do have a problem with pulling out of my driveway when there's strangers in the road. I don't know who they are. They're waiting for work. That's not what it's supposed to be. If you want to run your business, you need to have your business elsewhere, not on our private street. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to speak on this application?
I just spoke with my client, and I spoke to them about possibly revising the plan for the second floor to come in a little bit more, so it's not such a substantial relief for the second story. The first story, like we said, was just for the garage purposes. It had to be a minimum of 9 in order for them to be able to fit their vehicle, because they also have a cellar entrance there. But if we did 9 on the first story and then we came up on the second story to be more in accordance with the other ZBA decisions, like the 8.9, 11.6, or 14.5, if we came in that neighborhood for the second story.
So are you proposing an amendment or? Yeah.
Yes, I will send it in tomorrow. I'd say maybe a week at the most. Yeah. Yes.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good night.
Application number 88-23, Samara Realty Corp. Permission to erect two-story dwelling leaving front yard of 23.5 feet instead of required 25 feet. Roofed over porch leaving side yard of 7 feet instead of required 10 feet. And total side yards of 23.2 feet instead of required 25 feet. Decking with outdoor shower leaving side yards of 10 feet and 12.9 feet and rear yard of 14 feet instead of required 15 feet each. And to install hot tub leaving front yard at 57 feet instead of required 60 feet. All having gross floor area of 38.18% instead of permitted 30%. Residence BAA District, west side of Island Walk, 180 feet south of Central Walk, Lomeville.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the applicant, Steve Bertolino, 130 West Main Street, East Islip, New York. In the interest of full disclosure, I am the sole proprietor and owner of Samara Realty Corp., and this is my application. Second order of business, I'd like to withdraw that part of the application with respect to the outdoor shower. The outdoor shower is nestled in the rear deck. It's required to have a 15-foot setback. Initially, we drew it up to 14 feet. We're going to reconfigure the deck so that that portion will comply. So I'd like to withdraw that part of the application. Number two, starting with the,
It's not that easy. Slow down a second, please. The shower on top of the deck, don't you have to also remove the deck as well?
yes.
Beneath the shower?
Well, we're not
Okay.
removing the shower, to be clear. We're going to pull that part of the deck for the rear yard so that it complies with the 15-foot setback.
Still looking for the side yard.
Yeah, I'll address that one by one as I go through, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Okay, so the part of the call of the meeting that sets forth that we're looking for the rear yard setback of 14 feet will be withdrawn, and we will comply with the rear yard setback of 15 feet for the deck, upon which the outdoor shower shall sit.
So are there other amendments coming, or should the?
No, that's the only.
Motion to? anybody?
In favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the application has been amended.
Okay, with respect to the next, or the initial one with the 7-foot side yard instead of the required 10-foot, I want to point out to the board that this is only one small sliver. It's about an 8-foot sliver on the northeast corner of the property. So this style house has a cantilevered overhang over the front porch. I'm looking to wrap around the cantilever around the side of the house to protect or cover the doorway that leads into the mudroom, so I can be less muddy when I enter the mudroom on that side of the house. That being said, the underlying deck below it does not need a variance. It is only for the roofed over part of that overhang that requires the 7-foot setback. The deck itself complies as a 4-foot walkway. And I'll hand up a drawing in a moment that you can see. Actually, I can hand this one up now, if I may. So looking at the photo I'm just about to hand up, you can see in the front right corner of the house, the overhang will wrap around to the side, extending about 8 feet, and that is why I'm asking for the 7-foot instead of the required 10. As you go further down in the call of the meeting, on the total side yards of 23.2 compared to the required 25, the only reason I need the side yard setback is because of that roofed overhang on the side. The dwelling structure itself complies with both side yard setbacks, and we do comply with the total side yard setbacks, but for that overhang. So obviously, I would like that overhang, but if the board saw fit not to grant that overhang, nothing really would change with the siting or situating of the house and the decks on that lot. Moving down through the call of the meeting, the outdoor shower we just passed on the 10-foot deck instead of 14. In the rear of the house, the line of the house going from the front to the back between the accessory structure that's being proposed, we're keeping the deck in line. So I have two structures, both complying with side yard setbacks. The deck requires a 14-foot side yard. I'm just asking to keep the deck in line with the two structures, and when I hand it up in a minute, it will make sense. On the 12-foot 9, that would be on the south side, and proposed we have a 4-foot ramp, which is 10-foot 9 off of the side yard. The deck, when you get to the top of the ramp, is in line again with the house and is in line with further, jogged in, if you will, from the 10-foot 9 ramp, which complies and does not need a variance. So we're keeping everything linear. There'll be no jut outs. There's nothing that's sticking out further than what complies. But of course, the actual call of the meeting says 12.9 instead of the required 14 feet. Moving down on the hot tub, that's just a small plunge pool, 57 feet as opposed to the required 60, which is generally de minimis. This board has granted other small pools. This is a 49 square foot, which is allowed under the code. It's nothing big. The pool itself does not require a variance. It is located behind the house on the rear deck. With respect to the FAR or the floor area, we're asking for 38.18% instead of the permitted 30. Jay, can I hand this up? So what I'm handing up now is a schematic that has got some color coding on it, and it will hopefully enlighten the board as to what I'm speaking of. So on the precedents that we have for the front yard, 23.5 instead of the 25 on the front yard. Case number 582 of 08, this board granted 19.7 as opposed to 25. Case number 390 of 11, the board granted 20.5 feet as opposed to 25. Case 58704, it's a two-story dwelling. The board granted 21 feet instead of the 25. What I'm asking for on the front yard setback is for a small overhang. There is a cantilevered second floor bedroom that sticks out about 18 inches. I want to point out to the board that that cantilever does not encroach beyond the porch itself. The overhang for the porch, which is a permitted use and permitted under the setbacks, is closer to the street than would be this cantilevered portion. And you can clearly see that on the rendering that I handed up a moment ago. So I have three cases of precedent on the front yard setback of the 23.5. On the side yard porch, I can tell you case 075 of 09, this board granted a deck at 3 feet as opposed to the required 15 feet. Case number 390 of 11, this board granted 0.1. Granted, that was with a 5-yard setback. I don't know why there was a 5-yard setback, but this board granted 0.1 as a relief. Case 346 of 17, this board granted a 12-foot deck as opposed to 15. And once again, I want to highlight to the board, now that you can see that schematic we pointed out, none of my decks, I'm not asking for the entirety of the deck to be granted a relaxation. I'm just looking to keep the decks in line with the structures of the house and the proposed accessory structure in the rear. And with the other side, with the ramp, I'm looking to keep the deck in line with the house and further offset than the ramp. So again, the ramp is 10.9, the deck is 12.9, and the ramp does not need a variance. With respect to the total FAR, under case number 556 of 21, this board granted 39.97. On the case 568 of 15, this board granted 39%. And as you can see from the call of the meeting, I'm asking for 38.18%. And as surprising as this may sound to some of you on the board, Bill Wexler, as you know, is always talking about precedent. Every one of the cases I've cited to you is within 500 feet. They are all located within the community of Lonelyville, and this board has saw fit to grant it in every one of those cases. I'm not asking for anything that this board hasn't granted in the past within 500 feet, and I'm sorry to see that Bill Wex is not here tonight to join me in that part of the application. I understand, it would have been, yes, indeed. That being said, I will answer any questions the board has. I do want to point out two more things. Number one, I submitted to Mary Pissarro a letter from the neighbor across the street, David and Karen Ferraro. The letter was in support of my application. They would be the ones presumably most affected by the front yard relaxation for the overhang and for the cantilevered portion of the second-story bedroom. The property owner to the south, some of you may recognize the name, is Tom Croce. I emailed Tom Croce the plans sometime back in the spring. I met with Tom Croce on site in the fall. Tom expressed gratitude for sharing everything. I've known Tom for a bunch of years, and he said it's a great addition. I'd love to have it. I did reach out to him recently to ask for a letter to that effect. Presume he's hunting down, balloon parts in the sea or something for the Navy. I'm not really sure. But as an attorney, I represent to this board that I did speak to Tom personally. He did indicate his support, and I wasn't looking for a letter until such time as I heard that there might be community opposition. That being said, I'll take a seat unless the board has any questions for me.
I don't. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this application? If you could please step up and leave. Excuse me, sir.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. I'm Brendan Newell. I'm the park planner at the Fire Island National Seashore, which is located at 120 Laurel Street, Patchogue. My last name is Newell. The National Park Service strongly objects to the proposed development of the subject undeveloped parcel. The proposed development would result in a total lot coverage of approximately 42% less the primary access walk, which greatly exceeds the 35% maximum lot occupancy required under 36 CFR Part 28.12D. And also, the proposed FAR is 38% greater than the town of Islip's required 30% FAR. Should the property be developed as proposed, it would make the property subject to the condemnation authority of the Secretary of the Interior. The National Park Service also notes that the proposed shed appears to be the size of a guest house. While guest houses are not prohibited by our CFR, the construction of a guest house with cooking facilities is prohibited. We know, or that does not appear to be proposed. We're just raising that for awareness. The Seashore believes that variances should only be granted when there is a hardship to the applicant, such as the site being physically constituted so that it cannot be developed in accordance with the zoning regulations. In this case, the Seashore sees no reason to exceed the 35% lot occupancy or the town's FAR, as this is a new build in one of the few remaining undeveloped parcels on Fire Island. I've already submitted a letter for the record, but I brought another copy for tonight. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Newell?
We likely did. We may not have showed up to the hearing, but we review every case that is sent before us, and if it exceeded the lot occupancy or the FAR of the town, we would have objected. I realize that, and they would have been granted over our objection. Well, I started in May. Right, sure. Understood. I can't speak for my predecessors. I can just say that we object. Yep. Well, broadly, any property that is granted a variance that is out of conformance with our zoning regulations is subject to the condemnation authority of the Department of the Interior, your zoning regulations and our code. Specifically the portions, his property would be subject to the condemnation authority of the Department of the Interior.
That would be brought in court, correct?
Correct. No. At least not to my knowledge. It has not been done in recent times, but the park has been around since the 60s.
I've been involved in a lot of applications in the Park Island on the other side of the station, and I don't ever see a national park service.
We're increasing our engagement on zoning applications. Understood. I would say we likely objected to those in the same form that we are, except for that somebody didn't take the time to show up. Sure.
Good evening. My name is Max Felder. I live at 45 Robbins Walk in Lonelyville, at Felder. I'm a homeowner at 45 Robbins Walk in Lonelyville. Been there since 2017. I am in opposition to what we just talked about, and what I'd like to tell you all is that I don't believe the Samara Realty Corporation is actually going to live in that house. We've discovered social media posts on Facebook and Instagram selling the house with approved building lot plans. So I think this is just a ploy to get you to approve the amendments, the variances. It's going for sale as we speak with approved building plans. So I don't know how they can market approved building plans when you haven't ruled on it yet. So well, are the building plans approved? Your letter to Samara says they don't comply. So, right. So false advertising of approved building plans. No, but I live right behind. I really would love you to come to Lonelyville and see what the community is, because you are responsible for passing these variances and really destroying the nature of the community. It's really small bungalows, and now we have this mammoth McMansions that are coming up in spaces too small for them. And I know you've already passed the ones on Webster and Island and the ones up on the top by Robbins. And that's why we're all here tonight, to speak in opposition of this, because we don't think the owner is going to live there. This proves it. It's already for sale with approved building plans.
I've got a copy of this for you. It says includes approved building plans with purchase.
Right. But what he's doing is called flipping. He's flipping the house. And this
Well, it's
real estate
appropriate.
agent is actually false advertising and will be reported to the New York State Realty.
Unfortunately, our board was working to differentiate between homeowner and
Okay, but it's an example of the flimflammery that's going on. Approve the plans, and I can turn around and flip this and make a few $100,000. I'll let my other homeowners speak for them.
Good evening. My name is Monique Calabro. I live at 51 Robbins Walk in Lonelyville. CALABRO. I appreciate what you do here. I know it's not always easy what you do here. I am asking you to please just hold the code. I don't see any kind of hardship with this fellow who is going to flip the property. So if he could just build within the requirements and the regulations that were stipulated when things were put together, we would really appreciate that. We understand it's a buildable lot. We appreciate that he's a businessman and has every right to build, just to hold the code. So to keep that FAR at 30% would be great. They're not big lots, they're small lots, and they are bungalows. So thank you for your consideration.
Hi, my name is Deborah Kuhn Getz. I live in the property just north of the proposed building. Yeah, it's new. I keep GOETZ. It's 40 Island Walk, and my dad, who I'm also speaking for, Leonard Schwartz, SCHWARTZ, he's at 39 Robbins, right behind me. And again, like Monique said, I thought you had to prove hardship. I don't understand why they have to build something big. This is Lonelyville. It's not Ocean Beach. It's not the Pines. It's not Salt Bear. It's Lonelyville. It's really tiny. I've lived there since I'm 10. I'm 68. And we love living there. There aren't a lot of people that rent a lot of the houses, like to a lot of people. It's pretty quiet. And I'm in opposition to this. I don't mind if somebody builds something small. That's what we all are, just small little homeowners with our kids running around, our grandchildren. You know, even though you agreed to things in the past or approved them, I don't see why that means you have to keep doing it.
Hi, y'all. My name is Michaela Kuhn. I am the daughter of Deborah Kuhn Getz. So the properties that I'm speaking on are 39 Robbins and 40 Island. So, yeah, not a problem. KUHN. Not a problem. So, following up what everyone has said so far, just because it's been done once and it's been approved, it doesn't, when does it end? When everything becomes completely huge and monstrous, like at one point, why even have these zoning laws if you're going to keep overriding them? It doesn't make sense to me. And as of right now, the proposal is 27% over the allowable size for the district, and that doesn't include the proposed accessory shed. That's a lot. 27% is a lot. Sorry, I'm really nervous. I've never done this before. And again, my other question is, what's the relief? What was the hardship? Why is this being proposed? I didn't really understand any of that. I'm a psychotherapist. I don't know anything about building or codes or numbers like this. What's the reason? Lastly, I know that it has been granted in the past, but we've just had so many major storms. When was it? There's no comprehensive wastewater management in Lonelyville. They're still looking into it, the town of Suffolk as well as New York State. So how would that impact that research? How would we make the town better?
You're talking about this application affecting that?
Yeah, it's in this only empty lot. And that only empty lot has, I think, sorry, I'm really nervous. From my understanding, it has a little structure in it that has like a fire, what is that thing called? Hydrant. There's a lot of, if it's new construction and it's a little itty bitty tiny area, how is that going to impact? We are a barrier beach.
I'm aware I've been there. I'm just curious why this particular lot affects that.
Well, no,
Situation.
building is great. It's just how big it's going to be.
It doesn't seem like he's asking for a whole lot. It doesn't seem like it's a huge application and something like a cantilever. I don't know why how that would affect you.
Well, truthfully, I don't know what a cantilever is.
It's like an awning.
Okay, well, that's really helpful. Regardless, it seems excessive. Everything seemed excessive. There's a hot tub in Lonelyville. Everyone is one story and it's all itty bitty tiny bungalows. It just doesn't, it doesn't mesh. And I really appreciated how you reached out to the two other homeowners, but we didn't get anything. There was no carrier pigeon, no nothing. It doesn't feel good. We've been there since Lonelyville was created. My grandfather started the lot, or not started, he built on one of the earliest lots. We are 47.1 is Island. I don't know the lot number for 39 Robbins. I'm getting that though. So yeah, sorry, I'm just very interested. If you'd like me to point out where we are, I'm happy to do that. Okay. All right. All right. Well, did you all get the letters of opposition? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. This is all very cool, but really, really appreciate it.
Good evening. Thanks a lot for letting us speak here about this. My name is David Getz. I'd just like to echo a few things of the residents in Lonelyville and the Schwartz family. I'm sorry. Goetz. Sounds like goats, but it's really Getz. I get that. I just would like to note that the Schwartz family owns that property that is right north of this property, the old Finkel estate, let's call it. And it directly affects them. Surprisingly, the Samara upstairs, they sent out some letters. The Schwartz family owns the lot right next to his and the one behind it on Robbins. They received no notifications of this, so I was surprised. You send out notifications to people that agree with you, but you know, we're definitely people that are right next door and impacted. But I would like to say, I'm going to read a letter from the Ives family, and this kind of reiterates some of the things that have been said already. In regards to the Island Walk application, read slowly. Oh, okay. I'm rushing through it, huh? I thought it was pretty cool that the park system actually showed up and made the I didn't expect that. In regards to the Island Walk application for Samara Realty Corp., we implore the town of Islip to understand the very concept of what happens to a community as these variations are continually approved. Although a few feet here and there may seem innocuous when combine that with newer building height requirements plus second stories, which is not a really common thing in low-lying Lonelyville, there is an exponential change. Every variance and every grant is a character change to the community. It shouldn't be as simple as it's been done before by continually approving these variances. You're putting those with newly constructed homes like this in the neighbors' living rooms, in the neighbors' showers, and on the neighbors' porches. It is a suffocating change that we respectfully ask you to thoroughly imagine or come and see for yourself. Fire Island is always going to grow and change, and the older residents, such as the Schwartz family, have always known this, and we just respectfully ask to keep the breathing space, the original zoning requirements allowed, that were put in place, and they were put in place for a reason, to maintain the serenity and the beauty of the community. And the community welcomes new neighbors, but the second story house is like a billboard next to it, and 38% as opposed to 30 is a lot of square footage to be allowed. Thanks a lot for hearing me out.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Duerr Condia. That's DUERRCONDIA. And I'm also a resident of Lonelyville at 34 Ravens Walk. I'm here today in support of my neighbors, as well as the representative, and thank you, from the National Seashore, in support of them in their opposition to this variance. Like the others who spoke today, and also the others who sent letters and sent emails in opposition of this variance, we don't see that there's any evidence of a hardship. We certainly appreciate and value that someone wants to come to the island and build their dream home. But what we ask is that they just build their home within the confines that have been established already. They're there for a reason, not only to protect the nature of Fire Island, but also the infrastructure and the delicate infrastructure of the National Seashore. Thank you for listening tonight. Any questions? Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this application?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, addressing somewhat in order, I did speak to Mr. Newell outside in the hallway and asked what his concerns were, because I too have been before this board for the last 25 years, have never seen the seashore show up. Imagine my surprise when it happens to me. That being said, Mr. Newell expressed his concern about the accessory structure, and I assured him that this is not going to be a habitable structure with cooking facilities. Routinely, plans are submitted throughout Fire Island, both Brookhaven and in Islip. I know you're only concerned with Islip with these accessory structures, these larger-than-life sheds. However, the Islip code allows for up to 250 square feet of accessory structure that does not count as part of the FAR. So regardless of whether this board saw fit to grant me any variances, I could still build that accessory structure to the size that we're proposing at 245 square feet. I do stand here before you and say that I have no plans on making that into a second dwelling of any sort, of any kind. One other thing I failed to mention earlier with that roofed over porch on the north side, I have no intention of ever enclosing that front porch and or the side. If you were to grant me that that part of the application where it goes around, wraps around to the side mudroom door, that would never be enclosed either. With respect to Mr. Felder, yes, indeed, I did purchase the property. It cost me a little bit more than I anticipated. I then started getting quotes on building, and everything is just astronomical. So with that regard, I said, let me put some feelers out. Let me see if this is worth it for me to even build and invest. And yes, when I did purchase it, I intended on living there. As I stand before you now, I don't know if I can afford to build this house or not, but I'm already locked in. I already own the lot. So I told the local brokers, please list it. Let's feel it out. Let's see what we can get. It will be, not it is, will be sold with fully approved plans, whatever those plans may be. That being said, the cost of acquiring those plans is in the tens of thousands of dollars. It's not like you spend $1,000 and you have an approved process. So when you advertise something, it's not misleading to say you will take title with fully approved plans. Hence, you're getting a $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000 bonus or tacked on cost, if you will. That's what the sentiment is there, whether or not Mr. Felder has knowledge of that or not. With respect to some of the other concerns that were there, one of which is the septic system. I can tell you that this property and this application complies with all of the new Suffolk County Department of Health Services septic requirements, including the low nitrogen sanitary system. My sanitary system, whether this board approves my variances or not, for any size structure, will blow away any one of the applicant or the residents sitting to my right that have one of those 50, 60, 70-year-old systems that are exposed, that are leaching exorbitant amount of nitrogen into the ground. They don't seem to have a concern about upgrading them. They're only concerned about me installing a new one that complies with today's technology. So I take offense to that. If you're really that concerned about it, change your own septic system. With respect to carrier pigeons, I don't have one. So I couldn't send notices to everybody, and I did not stand here before and say that I sent letters to everybody. I know this board, specifically Ms. Pissarro and her team, sends out routinely the letters to the neighbors. What I said is that I spoke to two of the neighbors who I had come to learn their names and know, Tom Croce differently, but the Ferraros across the street, and I spoke to them directly and then asked for a letter from them. Now, I do understand the concerns of the neighbors. I do understand that Lonelyville, it's one of the reasons I liked it so much, is because I've owned in Seaview, I've owned in Ocean Beach, and they're too congested for me. I don't like that. So I do understand the nature and character of the community. What I'm submitting to this board is my application conforms to the nature and character of the community. It conforms to what this board has already previously granted. In the words of Bill Wexler, he would probably say something like, well, if we don't give it to him, he's going to sue us. We gave it to everybody else. And I've heard Mr. Wexler espouse those words many times. So I'm not changing the nature and character of the community. I'm not having any adverse environmental impact. And with respect to the seashore condemning my property, I don't see that as ever being an issue. I mean, it's a moot threat in my view. Every single property on Fire Island, whether it was Islip, Ocean Beach, or Brookhaven, would be subject to that condemnation process for any parcel that was ever exceeded their FAR, which, as Mr. Sullivan pointed out, is numerous. It's countless. They're not going to condemn the property. It's not only I'm standing here daring them to do that, but I don't think that should be a concern of this board. I don't think that that's in the purview of the board. I don't think that's a consideration that the board should have. Respectfully submitted, I once again reiterate, everything I'm asking for is relatively de minimis. I'm not asking to stick out anywhere beyond my straight lines or linear lines of the structure. Some of the relief I am asking for has been granted, and then some, tenfold in some cases. If the board has any further questions for me, I thank you for your time and consideration. I suspect a reserved decision tonight, but I hope you can push this along as soon as possible, as that window of opportunity to build is fast disappearing. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this? Question?
So Deborah Getz, 40 Island Walk, GOETZ. My house was built in 2003, and it has a really big septic system. I mean, that's what you have to do. You have to build these new big septic systems. So it's not true that our house has a 50 or 60-year-old septic system. And what was that movie? The Christmas movie, you know, where the guy brings in the mail sack? The federal government is saying something, you know? Doesn't that have any impact about what you all should do? Remember that movie? You know what I'm talking about? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Right. Anyway, Miracle on 34th Street. Anyway, thanks.
Anybody else that would like to speak on this application?
I just wanted to clarify a few things. So like many of those folks over there, we're not opposing the build in general, just that it holds, just requesting that it hold the 35% and your bar. And on wastewater and septic, again, we're just requesting that the house be built to the code and have the appropriately sized septic system. This is a slightly larger concern, given that it's an undeveloped lot, so it adds to the already overcapacity system, while acknowledging the rights of the owner to build a home on the property they own, just hopefully within the appropriate zoning code. And I'd also like to state that our past lack of appearances doesn't necessarily weigh on the gravity of the particular application. We have staffing concerns and lack of availability to come to many of these hearings. And my position in particular was unfilled for many months and filled by somebody else who also had a different job. So I don't know when these recent variances that you're talking about were granted in particular, because I didn't have the opportunity to review those. I know there's been many variances granted over a long time. And as a government agency, we are perpetually short-staffed. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to speak on this application? favor?
Aye.
Sorry, decision.
Thank you. Good evening.
Application number 89-23, Sean and Peggy Curran. Permission to leave wall 3.1 foot high, having rear yard of 1 foot and on-side property line, not having required setback of 4 feet each. Shed not having 20 feet behind the front line of the dwelling, and air conditioning unit not having required 4 feet behind the front line of the dwelling. Residence AA District, 278 Cluster, west side of Astor Drive, 369 feet south of Sunrise Drive, Sayville.
Good evening, Board. Sean Curran, 420 Astor Drive, Sayville. I'm looking for approval for the 3-foot retaining wall with a 1-foot setback, a plastic shed, 6x6 plastic shed, and to leave the AC unit where it is currently, next to the house.
Anyone else that would like to speak on this application?
I have a DEC permit for that, yeah, that's what the deal is. I had the DEC permit for it. Yeah, but it's not infringing on any property. Yeah.
Second.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Thank you so much.
Application number 90-23, Vassar Kaufman 222 LLC. Permission to modify existing ground sign. Oh, where'd it go?
We're going to just jump over that right now.
Okay.
Application number 91-23, Samuel Judd and Kristen Malloy. Permission to leave pool patio having side yard of 4.4 feet instead of required 6 feet. Residence B District, east side of Gainsborough Road, 177.38 feet north of Singingwood Drive, Holbrook.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Christina Bravin, Morano Expediting, 2938 Hempstead Turnpike, Levittown, agent for the applicant. This pool was constructed in October of 2021. There is a radius patio, as you can see on the plot plan or survey that's in your packet. So measuring from the closest point of that paver area, we're asking for 4.4 feet instead of the 6 feet.
Just what I said, just can't have it. Okay, we are. Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We're getting your two applications a little confused.
Me too.
Okay, this is just
It's been a
pavers.
busy
The
day.
shape is the same as, okay,
Yes.
got it.
Okay. Any questions from the board on 91?
No.
No? Okay. Take a motion from the board on. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay, ready.
Application's been approved.
Thank you.
Well, it's on the next one, so we'll call the next one. Application number 92-23, Brian and Tara McCarney. Permission to leave in-ground pool with water feature having side yard of 4 feet instead of required 18 feet, and pool patio having side yard of 4 feet instead of required 6 feet. Residence AA District, west side of South Street, 100 feet south of River Road, Great Road.
For the record, Christina Bravin, Morano Expediting, agent for the applicant. So we're requesting permission to maintain the existing in-ground pool with a water feature. If you have the aerial that you can reference, or I can hand up photographs, you'll see that the closest point of the actual waterfall is holding 13 feet. There is a planter area behind that has two nice beach grasses and then a few stacked slate. And they
Understand you have
measured from
photographs
there.
for us?
I'll give you the photographs if you can't pull up the aerial. Yes. I believe it's the first picture in the left of the
page that has 4 photographs, you'll see it's a planter behind the waterfall that they measured the 4 feet. So there's actually 13 feet to the back of the waterfall. And it's really small. They sloped the property just a little bit, approximately 20 to 24 inches to make the waterfall. It's not a, big structure. It's completely screened from the neighbors, from the fence.
What is the height of the?
Approximately 20 to 24 inches. It varies because it has like a natural sort of landscape the way they built it. The beach grass is like straw in the photograph due to the time of year, but you could see it's a planter.
So to make it clear, the board is not granting a water feature 4.4 feet from the side property line. It looks like,
13 feet we measured at its closest point.
are you comfortable with amending it that way?
Yes, if the board would see fit, yes.
So this way, it doesn't appear that at some time the board granted a pool with a water feature as close as 4.4 feet. It seems that an error was made in measurements, and somebody accepted the denial saying 4.4 feet, and that's why it got advertised this way.
Correct. We didn't catch that until we realized that it was the stone planter that they called out that houses the shrubs behind it. That's where they took the measurement,
So
not the actual feature.
The water feature itself looks like a little box attached to the pool, and the applicant is saying that it's 13 feet from the side property line instead of the required 18 feet. That would be good for research. Okay.
And in reference to the
All in
patio
favor of
area,
the amendment?
sorry,
Aye.
All right, so the amendment proposed been amended.
thank you. And the patio at its closest point is 4.3 feet. Again, referencing the survey, there's a portion of the fence that strays away from the property line, and that's where they measured from. So at its closest point, the patio reaches 4.3 feet, and then it tapers in back toward the property line more than 4 feet.
I'm sorry, does anyone else would like to speak on this? Favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Okay, we'll go back to application number 90-23, Vassar Kaufman 222 LLC. Permission to modify existing ground sign, leaving sign area of 74 square feet instead of permitted 37.6 square feet, having a distance between sign faces exceeding 12 inches, leaving front yard of 5.83 feet and side yard of 9.5 feet instead of required 13.66 feet each. Business 3 District, northeast corner of Sunrise Highway and Brook Avenue, Bayshore.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Philip Butler of the law firm Farrell Friss PC on behalf of the applicant, joined tonight by Chris Robinson of R&M Engineering. As this board may recall from a prior application, the former vitamin shop on the site is being converted to a Starbucks with a drive-through. Because the pad site is located something like 300 plus feet from the main access point on the North Service Road of Sunrise Highway, Starbucks would like some signage down on the service road, understandably. There is an existing pylon at the northwest corner of the service road and Westfield South Shore Drive Way, which we would like to add the signage to. It is the least intrusive option as opposed to creating a new separate freestanding sign. So two of the variances are effectively legalizing two existing conditions, one being the non-conforming setbacks of the existing pylon, the other being the existing box width or depth of the signage. So the new sign would match the width of the existing sign that is already there for the fitness center. The existing sign that exists there today is approximately 42 square feet, whereas 48 square feet is the maximum. So that really only leaves about 6 square feet of available signage area. So practically speaking, any sign that goes down there is going to need a variance. And the sign that's being proposed is not even as large as the existing sign. Again, the existing sign is 42 square feet. The sign that's being proposed is only 32 square feet. just large enough to fit the Starbucks logo and a sign that says drive-through. In addition to the improvement to the standing sign, they're also going to be putting in a landscape planter just to kind of beautify the corner a little bit. So that's just a little added bonus that kind of softens the appearance of the additional signage. The only conceivable detriment that could be thought of here would be sight distance problems from the additional signage, the additional area that it takes up. But based on the traffic pattern, that's not really an issue. All of the traffic is going from east to west, and they would be making a right-hand turn at that corner, so there's no potential obstruction. So that's really all I have. If there are any questions from the board, either I or Mr. Robinson can respond to them.
I don't.
Anyone else that would like to speak on the motion?
Second.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Almost there. Application number 93-23, Frank and Marianne Soriano. Permission to leave driveway on side property line not having required setback of 4 feet, having front yard occupancy of 43% instead of permitted 35%, and to renew permit for two-family use only pursuant to Section 68-419.1. Residence A District, east side of North Thompson Drive, 6,822.7 feet south of Pioneer Drive, Bay Shore.
Hi. Frank Siriano, Suriano, 1569 North Thompson Drive, Bay Shore. Good evening.
Second driveway.
Mhm. Yes.
Well, that's probably the original driveway, right? Because it goes back to your garage.
Yes.
So the second one would be the one on the south side.
Yeah.
Is there any way you can cut down on these?
Nope, I just put a lot of money into it already. And I made a neighborhood look nice. And you gotta see the houses around there, all pieces of shit. Yeah, I gotta say what I gotta say. I'm in front of you. And my neighbors have the same thing. They have driveways on their side of the house going down to the backyard. Yeah, and there's another guy next to me has 2 driveways going to the back, right next to me. And then the guy across the street has 2 driveways, and nobody says nothing.
There's no setback at all.
Anyone else would like to be heard on this application?
What's that? What? What are we talking
It's too big.
about? Oh, yeah. One question. That front of the street had floods over there, a lot of water. So I fixed it by blacktopping that front of my driveway and the side. Because I said I'm giving up with because the town never did nothing. Every time the town never came there to fix nothing. So I did what I had to do. I made my house beautiful by doing that. So,
Right. What he's saying is then we got to give everybody 43, and we're not going to do that. I can't speak for everyone else, but we don't want to, a lot of people don't want to increase having huge driveways in the front of their house. That's what he's asking. Can you make it a little smaller?
how do I make it small? I got to take everything down there.
Well, when you build things without permission, sometimes you have to do that.
I just put that shit. I put in 30 grand into that whole house, that driveway, and the building blocks and everything. Now you want me to rip it out? Mm-mm. I go to court then. But other people have it. But you go around that neighborhood, you can drive up and down that street, and you see them. You see the two driveways everybody has, and they all look like nothing like mine. No, I'm not gonna modify it. I'm done with the. Yeah.
What brought you here? You get a ticket, you trying to sell the house, you trying to get.
I'm not, no,
Is that
no.
a permit, CO?
The letter somebody sent me.
You had to submit an application.
What's that?
You had to submit an application.
Well, I had a expediter. She did it.
But why did you submit the application? That's what I said.
Why did you hire
Did you
the-
get a violation?
No, I didn't get nothing.
Did you go, I think I see solar panels, are you trying to close down the permit for solar panels?
No, I'm still waiting. I'm still in 7 years.
Are you in the process of selling your house or refinance?
Nope.
So why did you hire the expediter?
Because I had a lot of problems. I had to pay the fines I got in court. 1,500. I went to court for everything. Yeah, I was here once before the 19th, before COVID.
I know,
Mhm. So we're trying to help you guys out. We did what we had to do.
Aye.
You gonna send it? Okay, thank you.
Application number 94-23, Adriana Barbosa. Permission to leave driveway having side yard of 0.5 feet instead of required 4 feet and front yard occupancy of 49.9% instead of permitted 35%. Residence A District, north side of Ridgewood Street, 160 feet west of Ocean Avenue, Bay Shore.
Good evening. My name is Adriana Barbosa, and I live on 9 Ridgewood Street, Bay Shore, New York.
So, Mr. Barbosa, you saw the last applicant where we asked them to bring down the lot occupancy.
Yes.
Lot occupancy. You're at 49, you're higher than what he was. Is it possible for you to modify your lot occupancy?
Before I answer there, I just want to mention something. that, I did the driveway
Just a
according.
little bit louder, 5 years ago.
I'm sorry. So my driveway, it was already done that way before, so all I did was just add concrete on top of it because everything was broken when I purchased the house 2 years ago. So I didn't need any modifications or anything like that.
We're just talking about the driveway.
Yeah, because I mean, I do have a lot of grass on top, on front of the house. So there's actually more yard than the actual driveway. So I don't know how they getting the numbers like there, but if, when you're looking at the house, there is more grass than the driveway actually.
Well, how did you come up with the number?
Just by looking at it, you can see that where all the grass is, it's actually bigger than the driveway. You know. I applied for the permit to get for the solar system, and I guess that's how it was. Yeah.
So again, we're asking if you could please bring it down to 40%.
You're gonna have to narrow, no matter what, you're gonna have to narrow your driveway a little bit. You did a beautiful job on the house and the driveway.
Thank you.
Looking at the pictures from before you bought it, I guess, or before you did it in 2021, you expanded the size of the driveway substantially. You're gonna have to, you don't have to go all the way back. You're gonna have to cut about 10% of it all, no, 20% of it all, to get it down to 40%.
Sir, if you'd like to speak, please state your name and address for Mr. Canales.
It's Abdul, ABDUL. It's the
And
whole
your address,
thing.
please, Abdul. Please give your full name and
Oh,
address.
it's Ali Abdul in 909 Green Lawn Avenue, Islip Terrace.
Thank you.
It's 20%. It's right now, they're saying 49%.
Correct.
We have grass on the right side and we have grass on the left side.
Correct.
So then there's more grass
The
than
code
concrete.
says 35%.
And
And there's a good chance we'll grant you a variance up to 40%.
okay,
We were suggesting you
so
bring it down.
9% down.
Sorry?
You want to cut it down how much? 9%?
Yes.
Well, basically 10% from 49, 9 down to 40.
I know it's inconvenient, but our hands are kind of tied on this, that's how tied.
How long do I have to take care of this?
Well, as Mr. Sullivan says, when you go to fill out the permit for solar panels, they'll come out and measure it.
Problem is that like now everything is like just one thing after the other, you know. So it's
6 months?
that's fine. That's fine.
40%.
Okay. Thank you.
So first we'll get the motion to amend the code. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Application number 95-23, Rosario Arcuri Jr. and Janet Arcuri, permission to reconstruct one-story dwelling, cellar entrance, and roofed-over porch, leaving second front yard of 13 feet instead of required 15 feet, egress window having front yard of 8.41 feet instead of required 15 feet, and to leave driveway on side property line not having required setback of 4 feet, and front yard occupancy of 37% instead of permitted 35%. Residence B District, northwest corner of Gogol Street and Halbert Street, Holbrook.
Good evening. Thomas Bloor, the architect for the project, 60 Carlton Avenue, Suite 202, Islip Terrace, New York. The intent of this application is to reconstruct an existing fire-damaged residence down to the existing foundation. We'll be utilizing the existing foundation and slightly expanding on it. We're requesting the front yard setback of 13 instead of the required 15. This is an existing setback. Again, we're simply rebuilding the home right in line on top of the existing foundation, same exact setback that the house had. We also have a proposed basement egress window well with a second front yard setback of 8.4 instead of the permitted 15 on this side. But it should be noted that there is a large portion of grass area, approximately 9.5 feet, which is part of the Halbert drives right away. So from the street, the setback up here is much greater in the field. As far as the side yard, we do have an existing driveway with a 0.0 instead of the permitted 4 feet. The driveway is lined with raised Belgian block, does not slope towards the neighbor's property. And then lastly, a front yard lot coverage of 37% instead of the permitted 35%.
Footprint's the exact same?
No, it's slightly larger to the right, but we're not requesting variances on that side.
So to the extent that it's increased, that has not triggered anything?
Correct.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this application? Any other questions from the board?
Make a motion?
All in favor?
Thank you.
Motion read. Thank you.
Application number 96-23, Gabriel and Yvonne Quazo, permission to leave above-ground pool having side yard of 9.6 feet instead of required 14 feet, driveway having side yard of 2.1 feet instead of required 4 feet, and front yard occupancy of 46.66% instead of permitted 35%. Residence A District, east side of Udall Road, 515.2 feet south of Rockaway Street, West Islip.
Good evening again. Thomas Bloor, the architect for the project, 60 Carlton Avenue, Suite 202, Islip Terrace, New York. The intent of this application is to legalize and maintain an existing above-ground pool and driveway. As far as the above-ground pool, we're requesting a side yard setback at 9.6 instead of the required 14 to the existing above-ground pool. The pool is roughly a 20-foot diameter, above ground, about 4 foot 2 inches high. It has no decks surrounding it, strictly a pool. And my client would have no problem with a covenant and restriction that this approval would only be for the life of the pool. If the pool ever had to be taken down or reconstructed, it can surely be located in a conforming setback. Honestly, he was sold by a pool company that, hey, I'll take your money, I'll put your pool in the right spot. Didn't get him a permit or anything. When he purchased the house a couple of years ago, it had all of this driveway work done in the front of it. As we know, the line in the sand is pretty much 40%. I did explain that to him, but we are requesting a side yard setback of 2.1 feet instead of the permitted 4 feet to the existing driveway. As far as the front yard lot coverage, you'll see all the neighbors have probably more, but they're all legal. So I'd like to amend the application to 40% instead of the originally requested 46.66%.
Motion to amend the application.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Application is amended.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board? Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this application? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Application number 97-23, Michael and Patricia Gatta, permission to install in-ground pool leaving rear yard of 8 feet instead of required 14 feet. Residence A District, west side of Chevy Court, 148.05 feet south of Waterford Road, Oakdale.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Michael Gatta, Gatta, homeowner at 11 Chevy Court. It's a recharge basin.
Yes, that.
And I have the drainage easement, which is actually part of my problem with putting in an in-ground pool, is I have the 15-foot drainage easement that runs along the long side of my property on the south side. And I can't encroach upon that at all. So,
Those something to the drainage. It's a recharge.
Anybody else who would like to be heard on this application?
No.
Make a motion. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, application.
thank you.
Application number 98-23, Dorothy and Kim Roventini. Permission to erect one-story addition, 18.9 by 23, and second-story addition, 16.6 by 20.9, leaving floor area ratio of 29.26% instead of permitted 25%. Residence B District, south side of Mobile Street, 459.05 feet west of Terry Road, Sayville.
Good evening. My name is Ralph L. Sasser, ELSASSER, L. Sasser Expediting Services, located at 1134 Middle Country Road, Selden, New York. I'm here tonight representing Dorothy Roventini, and you'll see Kim Roventini, which unfortunately just passed away recently. Her fiance, Dorothy's fiance, John, is here tonight. We're basically looking for the change. The FAR is a little higher than it should be. It's 29.6 versus the 25. Just want the board to understand we're not changing the amount of bedrooms in the house, so we're not going to be needing Suffolk County Board of Health approval. One of the bedrooms is basically going to be now incorporated into the master bedroom suite. I do apologize. It's 29.26. The eyes aren't the same anymore, so.
Is there anyone else who would like to be heard on this application? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, have a good evening.
Application number 99-23, Roman and Alyssa Del Castillo. Permission to erect one-story addition, 15 by 30.3, irregular, leaving side yards of 8.8 feet and 10.8 feet instead of required 14 feet each, and total side yards of 19.6 feet instead of required 28 feet. Residence B District, east side of Brook Place, 300 feet south of Adams Street, East Islip.
Good afternoon. My name is Alyssa Del Castillo. It's DEL space CASTILLO. I live at 19 Brook Place. This is my husband, Roman. Basically, the plan is to just extend the house by one room. It would be a living room space. It wouldn't be like a bedroom or anything like that. And it would just extend the same distance from the side of the house. It wouldn't expand outwards. It's the same width as the current dwelling.
This would be at the back of the house?
Correct, yes, the back of the house.
We're just noting that you seem to have a roof over a concrete patio there.
Yes, it's an awning that was there when we purchased the home. It is not closed in. It's open on all sides, just a safe haven for the rain.
You'll be removing that.
Removing that, correct. That's exactly where the space would be, the room would be, the living area.
questions from the board?
No.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this application? Second. Okay, that's all. All in favor?
Aye.
Application.
Thank you very much.
There was a request to adjourn the next case. Is anybody here on the case of Richard and Gail Garcia? No. Okay, that applicant has requested an adjournment to an open date. Application number 101-23, Maximino Alvarado Arias, Claudia Argueta, and John Argueta. Permission to leave roofed over cellar entrance 10 by 30, having side yard of 4.5 feet instead of required 14 feet. Residence B District, north side of Earl Street, 298.52 feet west of Carlton Avenue, Central Islip.
Good evening, Board. Maria Hickey, Victory Expediting, 606 Johnson Avenue, Suite 25, Bohemia, New York, 11716. Yes, so we're just asking permission to leave the roof, the 10 by 30 roof, with the remaining 4.5 left on the side setback, especially because the basement entrance is already on the CL, so we'd like to have that roof remaining. Well, that's a good question. You want the homeowners to explain, or they're here? I just think that they probably didn't realize there was a setback requirement, and for that reason made it as big as it is. But of course, I'm going to ask if we can keep it or see what we can come down to, or what part of it can be left there. Absolutely not. We would never impose it.
So you would agree?
I do agree.
Is there any way to reduce the size, to exceed the cellar entrance itself?
To reduce the size of the roof over?
Yeah.
Well, of course,
Closer
I'm
to
here
the
to
house.
get as much as I can for my client, so
Sorry?
I'm here to get as much as I can for my client and ask to leave it the way it is, but if that's not acceptable to the board, of course, we would do whatever was,
This is what we're asking if
Substantial.
you could
Yeah.
reduce it to the size of the
yes,
cellar
we would be
staircase.
willing to, if that's what is required from the board, yes. That actually sounds reasonable. Because then it leaves a 2-foot, extends past the setback of the cellar entrance. So for rain and so forth, the extra 2 feet would work out.
How far is the cellar entrance?
It's like a 5-foot and then an extra 10-inch block. So if you're saying 8
It
feet,
seems that the roof over.
because the cellar entrance is approximately almost 6 feet. We would agree never to enclose it. Can you just explain again so from 10, we're taking it down to 8 feet, the roof, the width.
We're not sure if the distance from the house, but from the property line, it's got to be 6 feet, 6.5 feet away.
6.5 feet. Yeah, that's reasonable.
All right, so take the motion on the amended floor.
Well, a motion to amend the call of meeting to reflect a 6.5-foot setback from the cellar entrance. Amended the approach.
I'm sorry, I just want to make it clear in my head. I'm thinking it's 4.5 from the property line, it's going to go to 6.5.
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
And to never be enclosed.
And to never be enclosed. Understood.
All right, so we got a motion, we have a second on the motion. Crystal? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, application, amended application.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Application number 12-23, Megan Delano, trustee of Allison Hickey Irrevocable Family Trust. Permission to erect second-story addition, 18.6 by 26, and second-story deck, 15.7 by 15, leaving side yard of 11.5 feet instead of required 14 feet each, and to use dwelling for two-family, family use only pursuant to Islip Town Code Section 68-419.1. Residence A District, east side of Susing Boulevard, 498.56 feet north of Wayne Street, Hopatcong.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Jean Kennedy, 124 Haley Drive, Santa Mauritius, New York, 11934. I would like to note that on the public notice, the type in parentheses was still stating that the addition was going to be an 18 by 26 when actually it's supposed to be a 15.7.
Great.
The listing though for the required deck and the setback, are correct. What we're asking for is 11.5 now, and the deck is also 15.7 by 26. On January 10th, Mrs. Allison Hickey of 125 Ceasing Boulevard, Hopatcong's project has been before the board for a second-story addition having an 8.5-foot side yard setback. Unfortunately, the second-story deck was left out of the variance hearing, requesting the same side yard setback. We are now doing a rehearing for a second time for the addition and the deck maintaining the 11.5 side-foot setback. We understand about the precedences with the town, but I think I consulted with the building department, and they did inform me that on case 546-01, there was a 12-foot side yard setback granted for a second-story addition. And so we are now presenting, redoing the drawings, presenting our case now with 11-foot, trying to come into better compliance than we were here on January 10th. Mrs. Hickey did again get another letter signed from the neighbor to the north who is most affected by the deck and the addition, now stating the deck, being added as well, having no problem with that. Can I hand that in? The addition that's being added, I just want to say, is going to be for adding a dining room and a living room. Right now, the measurement would be about 15 feet for the adding on for the dining room and the living room, but they also had to add like a 3-foot closet within that room. So actually, the actual usage of the room for furniture and dining would only be approximately like about 12 feet. Yes. To cut it back any less with that wouldn't make any sense, because the room would be so small and so narrow for a dining room and a living room. The house right now is a 2-family dwelling. They purchased the house because they had to have their son move in with them and his fiance to help out because there is a health issue, and letters presented to the board, I think, from the building department, from doctors, saying about his condition.
So a little bit what's unclear about this, that's a little atypical for us, is we actually reserved decision at their hearing on January 10th and suggested that they might want to think about making the application better by meeting with the planning department. They did that. We were prepared to possibly amend, post-hearing amendment toward conformity, and then I realized that the second-story deck was never in the call of the meeting the first time.
Right.
So we opened it back up to re-advertise it. We now almost had the second-story addition correct, except for I left the dimension of 18.6 in. These trip hazards, I like to call them, and I tripped.
Right.
And, but I added in the second-story deck to this one, and we re-advertised it. I think we took the testimony on that last
Right,
time.
yes.
It's based on medical need.
Correct.
Any other questions from the board? Does anyone
No.
else would like to speak on this application
Make a motion to approve the application.
as amended?
As
No,
amended.
it's not.
It's
Oh,
amended.
yes, okay. Yeah. Well, I'm going to amend that one dimension in the second story addition. We,
All in favor?
Thank you.
All in favor?
Have a
Okay,
good-
your application has amended. Been approved.
Thank you.
Okay, so I was.
Look at the record.
Application number 102-23, Don Wanty, Sue Crown. Permission to leave one-story addition, 10.5 by 16.2, having side yard of 11.4 feet instead of required 14 feet, above-ground pool having side yard of 8.8 feet and rear yard of 10.3 feet instead of required 14 feet each, and rear yard landscaping of 28.5% instead of required 40%. Residence A District, west side of Violet Street, 62.58 feet north of Bow Lane, Central Islip.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dawanti Sukram, 8 Violet Street, Central Islip, New York, 61722. I'm new to this. I'm a nurse, so you guys have patience with me, okay? And I'm nervous. I have some pictures that you guys, I had uploaded. I don't know if you guys still want to look at them.
No picture.
Yeah, they told me I need new landscaping, so I just,
It's fine. It's not like it.
Something's going on.
it's just showing, they told me I need more landscaping. So when I bought the properties 14 years ago, there was concrete all over. So we broke the concrete down and I planted new grass in the areas. I'm not an arch. I don't know much about this thing. I've been a nurse for 30 years. So you guys please believe me.
So you modified it
Yeah.
recently? You took these photos?
Yeah, I just took like 3 weeks ago, but they were modified like in the summer of ending of the summer of last year, going on to the fall.
That's when you did the work?
Yeah, and that's when I submit the application to come meet with you guys here to get the variance.
So your surveyor was out at the property October 19th of 2022. I think you did the work.
Yeah. So right after right after, because I asked them, went to the board and I asked them what to do. But if you look at the pictures, they show the dirt and everything.
So do you think you could mark on a survey where you took up the concrete?
Yeah.
Sorry, Jay. I'm not sure this is going to work, but we'll give it a shot. Okay.
Where in the side of the house. When I bought the properties 14 years ago, it was concrete and the whole yard.
So you said by the pool you took up some.
Yeah, in the back. Yeah, in the back around the pool, and there's a lot of trees and stuff that I planted, new plants there. No, I just took the pictures, and I have them on my phone, so I just took them. That was after the survey. Because I don't know what to do. I went to the board and I'm asking everybody what to do. Okay. Uh-huh. Yeah. So, right. Okay. Right. Right. No, I understand. Yeah, but I just like what on the survey show because the whole yard, like my yard is huge and it was concrete. It's concrete everywhere. But just the yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. 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 So have them come back out. Okay. Yeah. I just want this to work. Okay. Yeah. Please, I will. Yeah. Okay. Right. So I know we have a lot of concrete. So yeah, I haven't the clue on what I'm doing. But I mean, yeah, I mean we bought this property 14 years ago, and the whole from front to back they were concrete. We broke the front, we planted grass in the front, the back. Yeah. Right. So I guess because there's a lot of maybe I have to break my concrete. I'd say maybe for the like 3-4 months because I'm a nurse and I'm in.
Do you have any court dates or anything?
I have to go back to court. I think in March. I don't have the exact date.
Why don't you do this? Why don't you call your surveyor tomorrow?
Okay.
And then call Mary. And she'll make it.
I appreciate it. You know, at this point, if I got to take the pool, I just need. You know, I it's an above ground pool. I never, you never get.
We understand that, but why don't you do
Yeah.
this? Why don't you, we'll give you an open agreement now.
Okay.
Tomorrow morning, you call your surveyor.
Okay.
And then call Mary. Then ask him when to get there.
Yeah.
And then call Mary.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I call Mary, right? Call your
Yeah.
office? All right, thank you very much.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
I'm going to call one more case and you better not amend it. Application number 19-22, adjourned from January 4, 2022. John Ciccarello and Ashley Frank. Permission to leave detached garage 26.1 by 28.1 with attached roof over 14.5 by 16, having side yard of 5 feet and rear yard of 4.2 feet instead of required 10 feet each, and to erect two-story addition 19 by 25.7, all having FAR of 32.5% instead of permitted 25%. Residence B District, west side of Pease Lane, 200.25 feet north of Merritt Street, West Expo.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the applicant, John Farrell with the firm of Son, Ward, Graff, and Koblenz. Our offices are at 333 Earl Ovington Boulevard, Suite 601, Hauppauge, New York. Not Hauppauge, I'm sorry, Uniondale, New York. I work in Hauppauge sometimes. The subject property is presently improved with a two-story single-family dwelling with a two-car detached garage with an attached pergola. My client had been here last year on this application, and the biggest concern I believe the board expressed was the fact that the garage was bigger than the existing house. My client went back and considered some options in between. She had a baby, and now they've settled on adding a two-story side addition of about 988 square feet. The first floor of the addition would include a family room. The second floor of the addition would include a master bedroom suite with a bathroom and his and hers closets. We're here tonight seeking permission to maintain the existing detached garage with the attached pergola and for the two-story addition. That generated a couple of variances for the garage to reduce the north side yard from 10 feet to 5 feet, to reduce the rear yard from 10 feet to 4.2 feet, and to increase the gross floor area from 25% to 32.5%. In looking at the surrounding community, there are a number of different house styles. There's colonials, ranches, Cape Cods. There's dormered houses. Just all kinds of additions, all different styles, and there are several with detached garages. I did some research, and while I couldn't find any variances necessarily, I did find some large garages with reduced setbacks. So the first one I'd like to bring to the board's attention is located at 540 Milligan Lane. Sure. For about 2 years, I think.
As you can see, it's not on the aerial, which is a 2020 photo.
Here's some photos. Property at 540 Milligan Lane. That's just around the block from this house. I pulled this. That house was here in 2001 for a variance to construct a dormer, and in the initial call, there was a variance for the detached garage, which is 24 by 36. That showed that it had a setback of 4 feet. They ended up deleting that variance because I think it seems like it had a permit prior to filing the application for the dormer. So I guess in between the permit for the garage and the permit for the dormer, there was a change in the code that created the setback requirements for the B district for the detached garages. Yeah. Nevertheless, the garage it has a 4-foot setback, a 4-foot side yard setback. It's smaller than what we're proposing here. In addition, there's property located at 625 Milligan. This property is interesting because it has a 2-car detached garage, and it does have a pergola off the side, which you can clearly see on the second page in the aerial photo. It's in the lower left corner there is where that house is. You can see the detached garage with the pergola over it next to the in-ground pool. So what we're proposing here isn't really out of character with the community, I would say. There are several detached garages. Most of them have less than 10-foot setbacks, and that's consistent with what we're proposing here. They are CO'd but it looks like they may have been approved prior to the change in the code. But as this board has discussed many times, it's the character of the community as it's been developed, not the character of the community as per the setbacks created by the code. I like Mr. Wexler. I like our banter. I miss it. So really what we're at now is the gross floor area, which is 32.5%. I would argue that is incorrect. The zoning department made us include the pergola off the side of the garage, which is a 15 by 15 open structure, as part of the gross floor area. If you look at the code, there are 2 conflicting provisions. The first provision says that in the definitions of gross floor area includes covered patios in the rear yard in gross floor area. However, subsequent to the adoption of that section, there was an amendment. And if you look at 68-3, the definition of GFA, subsection 2G, it states residential accessory structures not containing plumbing fixtures and which are smaller than or equal to 499 square feet are not included in gross floor area. The pergola is an accessory structure. It is less than 499 square feet. Therefore, I don't think it should be included in this calculation. Again, it's a conflict of the code. I'm not sure what the intent was of the board when they adopted this amendment, but it would seem to me that if the idea is to reduce gross floor area overall, why would you allow us to say build a 499 square foot pergola in the middle of the yard that wouldn't trigger any additional gross floor area, as opposed to having a 230 square foot pergola attached to the garage?
What
It's a less overall impact than what the code would allow.
What percentage is the pergola?
The pergola is about 2.4%. So if we took that off, it would be about 30.1%.
Right, it would bring you within,
Bring us within shooting range of what this board routinely grants. 32.4%, I understand, is a little more than the board likes to grant. But again, this is for a structure that's open to the, to the backyard. It allows them to enjoy the yard and not be, sitting in the sun. I mean, everybody has, some kind of structure to keep them out of the sun when they're sitting in the yard. Yes. Yes.
It seems that you were asking us for information rather than variance. I clarify conflict with the code. If there's precedent in favor of the FAR, only if you need to waive side step limitations. That's for interpretation of variance.
No, I understand that, and I don't want to get into that. What I'd like, I don't have any precedent. I don't know of any. I looked at all the properties in the surrounding area. I couldn't find anything that exceeded 32.4%. That exceeded 32.4%, or was that over 30%? But that's at odds with the code, because porches, but open porches are not, open porches and open patios, covered patios. I would defer to the precedent all the time, as opposed to having an interpretation. Again, I looked, I couldn't find anything readily. I was only retained on this last Wednesday. There's no code prohibition. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you. Well, I would argue that the house at 540 Milligan is 864 square feet and has a 4-foot side yard setback. So, and the majority and all of the other detached garages in the area have smaller setbacks, with the exception of that one. But that one is 130 square feet bigger than what we're proposing.
But it had a permit, right, prior to 2000?
It had a permit prior to the code change. However, I would submit that it's the character of the community as it's developed. And, there are no restrictions in the code for the size of the garage. If you moved it 10 feet off, it would be blocked by the house.
I think if we zoom out, we could find that other one.
All they're doing selling.
No, they're actually, they bought this house a couple of years ago. They built my client built the garage on his own, didn't get permits or anything for it, and then got I don't remember what happened exactly, but I think the inspector came by and gave him a stop work order. There was no violation to my knowledge. And then he came in here with the plans, and now he's proposing the addition. They just had a baby. They're looking to make this their long-term home. There's also a house at, I don't know, I think it's 30. Not to my knowledge.
It's difficult to interpret that was taken out there, and that's every time there was some kind of action needed to be followed. It doesn't necessarily. Yes. There was some discussion, there was a violation notice remedy date, and the architect for the project has been doing a good job explaining to code enforcement that they're moving along and would have a hearing soon.
535 Milligan, which is directly behind this property, has a detached garage that is has a 4-foot side yard and a 7.95-foot rear yard. This is a large property. There's big side yards. Doesn't really present as an excessively large house with a lot of square footage.
We're just looking for a little, aerial help here. So what you're saying then is the garage would sit up against that garage that's adjacent to the west?
I assume there's no one else here that wants to.
Jay?
Absolutely.
Motion to grant the application.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Take precedent.
I'll keep it quiet.
And Bill Wexler will be at the next hearing.
Good, I'm glad I'm done. Thank you so
And you
much.
didn't
Have
amend
a great
anything.
evening, everyone.
You didn't amend anything, thank you.
Yeah, no, try and keep it simple.
Oh, you amended this too? Oh, never to be enclosed? That's a condition, I can handle that.
That's, yeah, conditions.
Bye, guys. All right. Oh, hold on, we're just gonna do our renewals and then we can go on. You wanna go on? Or- Okay. Oh. Sure. Yeah, I can move that in for now. You wanna do the, want to carry it and everything? Yeah, it's, the name. 23. Okay. Yes, so I'll do that. Application number 93-23, Frank and Marianne Soriano. In accordance with the proposed written decision dated February 7, 2023, the application is denied as submitted as to front yard occupancy of 43%. However, granted front yard occupancy not to exceed 40%, and granted as the two-family family use only renewal for a period of 3 years. On motion of.
Aye.
Great. Thank you. And we have 11 accessory apartments to renew. Thank you. And
Aye.
next page. We have 12 two-family family use only to renew.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, that's a wrap.